Top 10 Doom Clones Explored. Although Wolfenstein 3D was released a year before Doom, the kind of impact that Doom has had on first-person shooter games and video games in general is immense. The game led to the creation of the genre we know as the boomer shooter. With the enormous popularity of Doom in its heyday, many other games tried to emulate it and in turn jumped into the bandwagon to make a fortune. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video to learn about the top 10 clones of Doom. Project WARLOCK 2018. Project WARLOCK is a first-person shooter game that was created by Buckshot Software as a homage to the shooter games of the 90s. The players assume the role of an enigmatic warlock as he mows down hordes of enemies over 60 levels spanning 5 worlds. The main goal of the game is to stop monsters of hell from invading. Much like the shooters from the 90s, the game does not focus much on the plot and instead focuses on the gameplay. The player uses spells alongside conventional weapons to kill the monsters. The player progresses by killing monsters and collecting gold, for which they earn XP, which in turn boosts their stats. The player can also upgrade their weapons and spells using upgrade tokens, which can be collected by discovering secrets which can be found in each level. Since the game is based on Doom and other shooters from the 90s, it does a great job of recreating the gameplay. The game also has graphics similar to the FPS shooter games from the 90s. Shadow Warrior 2013. In Shadow Warrior, we come across Zilla Industries' private security guard Lo Wang as he and his demonic sidekick Hoji together embark on a journey to take down enemies big and small as they go on a rampage to collect the missing pieces of the magical sword. The narrative of the game is explained through cutscenes and through the conversations between Wang and Hoji. The game is a remake of the 1997 game of the same name. Unlike the 90s version, the jokes cracked by Wang are a bit more censored, and the game allows the players to upgrade their guns using money lying around in the game. The game is very similar to Doom with a bit of toilet humor thrown into the mix, but apart from that, the gameplay and weapons design is very similar to Doom. HELLBOUND 2020. Developed by Cybot Studios, in HELLBOUND the player assumes the role of Helgor, who has but one thing in mind, which is to kill demons. The game, as the name suggests, is set in the backdrop of a hellish landscape, and the game, unlike many of its counterparts, does not focus much on humor, but just killing hordes of monsters. The studio has done a fantastic job at imitating the mechanics of popular classic games, even though it was a very modern game being released in 2020. The campaign of the game is around 3 hours long, and with a perfect placement of enemies, it is a blast to play. Made as a homage to the FPS games of the 90s, the game draws heavily from Doom in terms of gameplay, which is characterized by fast-paced action, blood, gore, and an energetic heavy metal playlist. NECROMUNDA Hired Gun 2021. The game is set on the mechanized planet of NECROMUNDA within the Warhammer 40,000 universe. The game starts with a hired gun going after a bounty named Silver Talon. However, the Silver Talon kills the partners of the hired gun before escaping. The hired gun is saved by Kyle Jericho, who asks him to safeguard Gilder, on whom a bounty has been placed, but the hired gun isn't able to keep the Gilder and goes after the Silver Talon instead. The game is fast-paced and has hordes of enemies attacking the player, and also allows the player to perform takedowns. With a linear level design, the game is a blast to play with an agile protagonist and a cyborg canine companion. Thus, it can be said that the game is like Doom, set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Marathon 2 Durandal 1995. Developed and published by Bungie Software, Marathon 2 Durandal was a sequel to Marathon and took place 17 years after the events of the first game. In this game, the protagonist and a group of ex-colonists are sent to the planet Luwan to gather information which would help the AI Durandal assess the threat posed by the Four, who plans on destroying humanity. The game was created by the legendary team behind the Halo trilogy and would later go on to develop the Destiny franchise. The game has a fast-paced gameplay, and in combination with hordes of aliens attacking the player in a claustrophobic corridors, it is easy to see why the game is often compared to Doom. HERETIC 1994. Developed by Raven Software in collaboration with id Software, HERETIC is based on an altered Doom engine. In this game, the player takes on the role of the elven hero Corvus, who belongs to a race known as the Sithé. Sithé believed in Armageddon, and soon enough, 3 cloaked riders known as the Three Serpents came from the east after putting an end to wars in the eastern provinces. These 3 were then worshipped by the people, but the Sithés afterwards refused to believe in their dark ways and extinguished the flames. This enraged Disapril, who would go on to unleash a horde of monsters to kill the cities. Like Doom, the player must meticulously look for secret keys and doors throughout the levels to progress. They also have to manage their weapons properly as they mow down hordes of enemies. The usual weapons of the game include the Hell Staff, the Gauntlets of the Necromancer, and the Ethereal Crossbow. Dusk, 2018. Developed and published by New Blood Interactive, Dusk takes place in the northeastern part of America in the spooky Blackwood forests. The player finds himself hanging by a meat hook as he regains consciousness and must fight to stay alive. The game features 3 campaigns where the player has to deal with cultists, possessed militants, and even more nefarious entities to survive. The game is unapologetic about its 90s-inspired gameplay and allows the player to wield a variety of weapons that include swords, sickles, dual-wielded shotguns, and much more. Apart from the campaign mode, the game features a survival mode in which the player has to face endless monsters till the time he can. Last but not least, the game also has an online mode called the Dusk World, which allows the players to play with friends in online multiplayer arenas. With the game trying to emulate games from the 90s and earlier, Dusk has a striking resemblance to games like Doom and HERETIC, famous for their fast-paced action gameplay. STRIFE, 1994. Developed by Rogue Entertainment, Strife is set after a comet has hit Earth and killed most of the people and released a virus that has mutated the survivors to hear the voice of a nefarious god and become members of the cult known as the Order. The Order goes on to kill women and children, forcing the remaining inhabitants to live underground. However, a resistance movement called the Front was formed to rid the world of the tyranny of the Order. The player assumes the role of an unknown mercenary who fights for the Front and is abducted by the Order. He has to find a way out and then face numerous enemies that the Order throws at him. Since the game was developed on the Doom engine, it is understandable that many facets of the game are similar to Doom, especially the level design and the gameplay. Devil Daggers, 2016. Developed by the indie development team of Sorath, Devil Daggers is a game where the player has to survive as long as they can in a dark arena where hundreds upon hundreds of demonic creatures attack the player. The player can only shoot daggers through their fingers and dodge the attacking enemies in order to survive. The game does not feature a campaign mode with any distinct protagonist. The game pays homage to the FPS shooter games of the 90s, and the graphics are very similar to Doom. The simple yet frantic gameplay does not allow the player to rest for even a while and makes for a thoroughly entertaining game. POWERSLAVE, 1996. Developed by Lobotomy Software, the game is set in the ancient city of Karnak in Egypt. When the city is taken over by extraterrestrial forces, the player is sent there as part of a special team of soldiers to figure out the reason behind the commotion. But on his way, the player's chopper is shot down and he barely manages to escape alive. He is then sent to the city to save it from impending doom and has to fight with alien insect-like creatures known as the Killmat, along with mummies, scorpions, and various other creatures. On his journey, the player seeks guidance from the spirit of King Ramses, whom the Killmat want to resurrect and use his powers to take over the world. POWERSLAVE is very similar to Doom in terms of gameplay, where a large number of enemies attack the player at the same time, but instead of monsters from hell in Doom, the protagonist faces alien insectoids. Marvelous Verdict. Although the games mentioned in the list try to emulate the success of Doom, over the years these games have also managed to carve out a loyal fan base for themselves, prompting modern developers to invest their time in creating similar games so that the old generation of gamers relive their memories while giving the younger generation a simple, fun game to enjoy. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video, and for more exciting videos, please subscribe to our channel.